moral of the story is that you really do need to work collaboratively in some manner, because on a lot of these use cases, your value as a carrier is in a sense dependent on what are the other carriers' size that are a part of the network already. And so there's kind of this chicken or egg problem that develops frequently with enterprise blockchain. As you look more into the technology, it's pretty clear it's a deep technology which takes time. The Institutes, fortunately, as a nonprofit entity, has the ability to support an initiative like this, whereas some other for-profit entities they don't have the time that really is required for a deep technology like this to play itself out. Hello, this is Patrick Schmid. I am the president of the Institutes RiskStream Collaborative, and this is the future of insurance.
Patrick, it's great to get you on here and understand a bit about you, but also about RiskStream and what you and the team have been building and what the Institutes is trying to do for the industry. So I'm excited to have you here because, frankly, as I mentioned before, this has been one of those buzzwords: blockchain, distributed ledger. All of this has been like sort of hype for years. And I think people have been waiting for, but for what purpose? And I'm excited to see what you all are starting to facilitate to make it more tangible. So I think this is really important because I do think it's a technology that has a lot of purpose for the industry. So it'd be great to dig into that a bit. So welcome and thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me, Bryan.
Can you, just for background, tell us about yourself? And I assume, like everyone, you got into insurance by accident, but what's your story that brought you here?
Well, again, thanks for having me. A little bit of background on myself. So I'm an economist by background, PhD economist, worked as an economist for Moody's for a little while, and taught economics and finance at a variety of institutions in the Philadelphia area. I found my way into insurance through the Institutes and, quite frankly, proximity to where I am.
Yeah.
And I didn't know much about the Institutes. The Institutes does a lot of, for those who may not be familiar with the Institutes, they do a lot of insurance education, credentialing. Their flagship designation they offer is called the CPCU designation, which is pretty much the masters of insurance.
Yeah. I feel like as soon as you said that, people are like, oh yeah, I know who that is.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they do a lot of other things. And I got involved with a group called the Insurance Research Council. And they do, in a sense, they aggregate data on behalf of the industry to look into public policy-oriented matters. Things like fraud, uninsured motorists, auto injury claims. So they take in data from various insurance companies and analyze that data for various public policy purposes. Their research is often cited during public policy-oriented debates about the insurance industry. So I started there and eventually moved into a different area of the Institutes called Enterprise Research, where we were doing more market research, marketing research on behalf of the organization and its various affiliates. And again, since my origin in the insurance industry till now, the Institutes has changed quite a bit. They've added various affiliates like the Insurance Information Institute, also known as III. Claims Litigation Management, CLM, the Griffith Foundation, and they started the RiskStream Collaborative. So that's kind of my origin story into the insurance industry, and I've been kind of moving into different positions at the Institutes since I kind of got involved in insurance, and it's been an exciting ride, and definitely not one that I anticipated taking, but it's been fun.
Yeah, I always say, unless your parents were agents, no one ever anticipates taking any ride through insurance. But people generally have this view that it's not what I expected. It's been great. It's been interesting. There's a lot of possibility. It's funny, I think back to my time on the carrier side and, kind of mid 20 teens, 15, 16, 17, blockchain was a theme at every conference. And I think we were all sort of scrambling. There was one event I was a part of. It was from the CLM, the Claims Litigation Management Society or organization. And Peter Miller, your CEO of the Institutes, was talking about a number of things. This is right when the Institutes was buying the CLM and bringing it into the fold. And it's the first time I heard someone talk about blockchain and distributed ledger technology sensibly, with vision, and I think from a genuine perspective of insurance. And not just sort of it's technology, we need to figure it out. And so there's a part of me that's like, okay, watch this space, watch the institutes. And this is before RiskStream had been set up. So I thought it was really fascinating, and now we're here. So I'd love to understand what is the intention or the purpose of the RiskStream Collaborative, and what is it you all are building? Then obviously I want to dig into that a bit more.
Sure. I think, the high level of what the RiskStream Collaborative is trying to do is really threefold. And the most important piece of what we are attempting to do is bring the industry together.
Yeah.
We're really focusing on multi-party business processes. So if you think about RiskStream, the key word is multi-party. So we're not necessarily going into a carrier and saying you can create efficiencies internally in these ways. It's more when you, carrier A, are interacting with broker A or carrier B or reinsurer A,
Yeah.
there's a process there. And generally that process isn't something easy to achieve in operational efficiency on your own. So what we were doing is bringing carriers, brokers, reinsurers, and some periphery organizations together to create an ecosystem. So there's a business network. That's the first fundamental pillar of the RiskStream Collaborative, is bringing the industry together. We've created a blockchain-enabled platform that we call Canopy.
Yep.
And I think the key word there for folks who aren't very familiar with blockchain is enterprise blockchain. So generally speaking, with blockchain technologies, it's a decentralized technology. For us, each company, in a sense, has a node on this decentralized network, which basically you can think of as a computer that can interact with other nodes on the network privately and securely to exchange information, verify information. Those nodes can integrate to core systems of record, like a claim system.
Mhm.
So you could theoretically have a carrier exchange data from their claim system, carrier A, through their node over to another node, carrier B's, into their claim system, which could be a disparate claim system,
Yeah.
and automate procedures securely and privately from one system of records to another. And that's the genius of blockchain technology, is the ability to do that without a centralized intermediary. What RiskStream's providing is a level playing field, a referee in a sense, as a nonprofit entity to bring these competitors together,
Yeah.
set rules of the road collaboratively that we all agree on, and then enforce those rules across the network.
Um, I have an example in mind that was talked about in my first book. And I mean, if anyone sees the books, they'll know who the carriers are. I don't want to name them here, but two of the largest carriers in the US who came together for this purpose and built a connection through blockchain just between the two of them around subrogation, because they were noticing how many times are they issuing payments back and forth to each other, and largely they cancel out or get close to it. And one clearing payment could have done the trick instead of 1,000 intermediate payments that are just sort of bombarding each other every day. So they solve for that really, I think, effectively, brilliantly together. And their intention was to then open that up to others. And I know some of the others that wanted to become a part of it and they weren't allowed to be. And there's various reasons and stipulations and whatnot. But that to me was like, great idea, great potential. We waste a ton in these back and forth payments across every carrier, just in subrogation. There's lots of other ways that we could be doing better. And it's never gone anywhere, really. Just those two carriers. And that's where, the last word in your name is collaboration, or sorry, collaborative.
Yeah.
And it is about that to me, is why does this not work as well, or perhaps at all, if, can't the industry just come together and do this themselves? Can't all the companies get in a room and say, hey, let's do better together? That we've tried that, it hasn't worked. Why does it need to be a standalone that's building this as a collaborative, third party nonprofit, I think, critically,
That
solution?
that is the key question with enterprise blockchain.
Yeah.
It really is. It's, if you look back at different projects like the one you're citing, I have a ton of information around that particular project that might be pretty fascinating to folks who are watching or listening. That particular project actually, in a sense, originated in RiskStream.
Yeah.
And when we first were founded, a handful of years ago, we started looking at different use cases that could be applicable. And the very first one was net settlement within the subrogation space.
Yeah.
And it was interesting as we started to talk to different companies, we found, let's say a handful of top 10 insurance companies had already been building this POC concept internally.
Yeah.
In fact, one of them, Liberty Mutual, in a sense, donated a net settlement code to the collaborative because they had built it and they were, in a sense, going to consider shopping it to their competitors. But they recognized the fact that their competitors aren't going to want to buy a solution that they, as a competitor, built.
Yeah.
You needed kind of that referee in the middle to enact that. Now, every company wanted to try blockchain in different ways. Those two companies that did go about trying the net settlement kind of portion on their own recognized that RiskStream was leading an initiative towards the earlier part of the claim experience with a solution we call RapidX, which I was kind of providing an overview of earlier with the claim, and then you could think the subrogation would come later. So they wanted to look at it from two perspectives and test them. One, the consortium angle, and secondly, on their own, and which one would work out. So they wanted to try an A and B test and see, could they do it on their own? Did they really need a consortium? And I think that the moral of the story is, whether it's in the insurance industry or external areas, like Facebook tried to do something similar with payments.
Yeah.
And that project failed.
Yeah.
They weren't able to rally the troops as a for-profit entity to kind of come together as a collaborative. And that's why I think you really do need, even Facebook eventually tried to create a nonprofit to do that project, but everybody knew Facebook was behind it. With the RiskStream Collaborative, we're founded by the Institutes. They've been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
Initially formed out of Wharton. They're trusted by the industry to have the best interest of the wide industry. And therefore it's a logical place for the, co-opetitions to take place.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's not to like besmirch or belittle any of those initiatives. They're good ideas,
Definitely.
Great that we're trying to move things forward. But I think inevitably you're going to come down to someone sees it as a commercial offering and they want to make money on it. And actually that's not really where the value is. The value for Liberty, when they made that decision, it's not to offer it up as a SaaS solution to their competitors. It'll generate some revenue. If it's successful, it'll be a nice little business, but at their scale, that's actually totally irrelevant. The real upside is people using it. So it's like, how do you enable the network effect, which is very hard to do if you're just trying to make money on owning the network.
That's right on. And I think the industry is learning that. Liberty knew it right from the jump, and other players are learning it as they go and trying it in different ways. But I think the moral of the story is that you really do need to work collaboratively in some manner and set the stage, because to your point, on a lot of these use cases, not all of them, but a lot of these use cases for this technology, your value as a carrier is, in a sense, dependent on what are the other carriers' size that are a part of the network already.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of this chicken or egg problem that develops frequently with enterprise blockchain. And, as you look more into the technology, it's pretty clear it's a deep technology, which takes time and takes investment. And the Institutes, fortunately, as a nonprofit entity, has the ability to support an initiative like this, whereas some other for-profit entities are seeking immediate returns and looking for, they don't have the time that really is required for a deep technology like this to play itself out.
Yeah, this isn't a quarterly results horizon kind of thing. I mean, obviously I said, we've been talking about this for almost a decade. So that's 40 quarters that you wouldn't have anything to show your shareholders or, your annual reports or whatnot. So I think there's been a lot of talk, a lot of interesting use cases, a lot of early progress. I'm curious what you think, whether there have been barriers that we've recently overcome, or are there things that have unlocked of late, whether it's even just mindset and acceptance, that you think will change your trajectory? And then I want to get into what that trajectory is, where you see this heading and when.
Well, I think, I can speak more towards our project because there's a lot of learnings just from our project that are probably applicable to other similar types of projects. But with the RiskStream Collaborative, one of the things that's developed over time is the importance of obtaining strategic advice from all the players and forming, in a sense, governance committees that can provide that. So, for example, we talked a little bit about one of our flagship use cases, which is called RapidX, and it's basically an auto insurance oriented loss exchange solution that
Okay.
allows those systems of record, the claim systems, whether it's Guidewire to Duck Creek, Guidewire to Homegrown, doesn't matter. You, in a sense, can stand up those nodes that can exchange that information across the network, potentially match that information if they're sent at the same time, and then kind of automate the process of pushing it into the system of record. So by the time you call in as a policyholder, they have information and can expedite that experience, which provides a better customer experience. So I think that solution has allowed us to, there's a chicken or egg problem with that solution.
Yeah.
But having an advisory committee has helped us start to overcome that by giving us advice like letters of intent, so that we can start to know, okay, there's 4 or 5 companies a part of the collaborative that have 25% plus market share that are committed to adopting the solution. Now, as a non-participant, I can come to the table and start to recognize, okay, there is interest in adopting this solution.
Yeah.
We're going to have 3 companies that are going to pilot the solution. Their market share in aggregate is probably roughly 15%, and they're doing so over the course of the next couple weeks. So we're going to learn quite a bit about the intricacies from the pilot. But one of the things we've also learned is, as you peel back the onion on these use cases, you learn different things. Like, one of the things we learned about the RapidX solution is, today the insurance industry has third-party claims portals available.
Yeah.
In a sense, the third-party claims portal is something that was invested by this carrier to take in information from an opposing carrier.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we started a working group related to this at the advice of 2 top 5 auto insurers. And they said, if you had a universal portal,
Yeah.
it would make a lot of sense with RapidX in the background, and you could interact with non-network participants. So that's something, by peeling back the onion, we learned from our members. Hey, there's a solution here. We like RapidX, but in order to get that, we have these third-party portals. It makes no sense for us to have our own third-party portal. We really get no benefit out of that. In fact, we have to advertise to our competitors that we have this third-party portal, so they will go to it. Having one universal third-party portal for all RapidX participants allows them to get the benefits of RapidX with one another, but also engage with those who aren't on RapidX yet.
Right.
And so that's a learning, and it's kind of in trial and error for us to get to this point. But I think we're really excited because we're starting to overcome that chicken or egg problem that's been around related to enterprise blockchain.
Well, I always bring conversations to claims, and I know this has sort of been kind of claims focused, but you did mention up front agents and brokers. And I think that's one of the earliest cases where I wish that there was something in place, because we've been trying to solve. I mean, my first project in the industry was looking at something called Global Risk Exchange. It's back in 2000, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was trying to be a third-party portal where the brokers would come in on one side with the insureds and the carriers on the other side for large complex risk. And, in like 2000, I don't think most CFOs were going to purchase a multi-million-dollar insurance program through the web, because that, like, you weren't generally, there was no Amazon really yet. Like, a lot of things were not happening through the web. But then you had all of these agents, brokers, wholesalers building out portals where they wanted the carriers to come. You had carriers building up portals that they wanted the agents to come to. And it just was like, we don't all want to use each other's portals. There has to be a better way. And anything commercial was just another mouth to feed in an already, expensive and complicated process. We needed a better solution. So I'm hearing you on the claim side, and remembering you talked about agents and brokers. Clearly, this is not just a claim story. There's so many moments in the total life cycle of an insured where we could do better together, whether it's with other carriers or trading partners or body shops or contractors or whatever. Are you thinking about it that broadly, or are you staying more kind of function specific?
Yeah, we're thinking about it very broadly. The example that we've provided so far has been an auto insurance claims oriented example. However, like we've discussed, even with subrogation, there's areas down that value chain, the auto claims life cycle that, provide additional areas of opportunity. But we're looking at other areas altogether different. For example, one of our largest initiatives is actually in the surety bond space.
Hmm.
And so we've had, I think it's 180 entities involved in this in one way or another over time. It was led by the following surety associations: the NASBP out of domestic US, the National Association of Surety Bonds Producers, the Surety Fidelity Association of domestic US, the Canadian Surety Association, ICISA out of Europe, and the Pan American Surety Association. They were all the surety experience, whether you're an agent, you're a principal, you're a surety, or you're an obligee, is manual,
Yeah.
paper-based. And again, like the theme of enterprise blockchain is multi-party business processes. So you have all these parties,
Yeah.
and you have a challenge with digitizing. The plus of the approach that we're talking about with enterprise blockchain is this connectivity through this node, as we call it, or in a sense, you can think of it as a computer for your organization to your core system of record, that integration. And then it allows you to do business with these other parties in an automated fashion. So with the surety experience, we're doing that, and it's largely going to benefit kind of the agent community for power of attorney verification
Hmm.
and for the verification of the bond itself. We're actually using a technology that I'm sure everybody's familiar with, or at least has heard of before, called non-fungible tokens. And these NFTs
NFTs.
that most folks think about are thinking about like digital collectibles, right? We see all
Yeah.
the pictures of these. But what we're using the NFTs for is in a private permissioned blockchain environment, this network. And in a sense, you're tying that power of attorney document or the bond itself to a non-fungible token, which is basically unique.
Hmm.
And you can share that token across to other parties to verify and prove authenticity of the underlying bond, which is very valuable in the surety space and could potentially be valuable in other industries as well. One of the pluses of this approach that we're using with RiskStream, and I'm sure other enterprise blockchain initiatives, is once you build something, you build the platform. We have this platform canopy. And then you build an application on that platform. Let's say a data exchange application like RapidX, or you build some sort of verification use case like we're discussing in the surety industry. They're in a sense reusable. You have to tweak
Yeah.
them for other sectors, but they're reusable. So certainly we're definitely engaging with the kind of the agent producer broker community on various use cases. One of them is surety, but there's plenty of others as well,
Yeah.
and I think that's a big area of opportunity.
Well, before I let you go, I want to ask you about what the future looks like. And, are we still, is this still an early days kind of thing? Is the momentum picking up? Or do you think it's already here? Like, where do you think we are, and what's the horizon for this being more ubiquitous and helping, helping smooth things out across the board?
Yeah, I think we it has taken time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Gartner hype cycle where you were at the peak, and now I think we're in a sense emerging from I think they call it the trough of disillusionment
Yep. Yeah.
towards plateau of productivity. And I think we're emerging out of there within the enterprise blockchain construct in insurance. It's taken some time, but we've now got the platform. We now have use cases. We now have governance around those use cases, and they're emerging towards pilot states. We have emerged beyond pilot with one of our projects in the reinsurance arena related to parametric. That is great. So that's in production today. And really, that's a parametric homeowners reinsurance project that allows for exchange of information between the reinsurer and the cedant. But there's plenty of these types of opportunities that can emerge further over the course of the next 2 years. I do see a lot of potential, particularly across the board, whether you're looking at auto or life and annuities related to claims.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big area of opportunity. And we've certainly looked into the underwriting component and exchange of information related to that as well. But I think what we might see emerge here over the course of the next few years as well is payment use cases. And that has been one that has been on the horizon that I just don't think the technology was there for it initially. Even with our parametric solution, we're not getting to the payment aspect of it. But I think that that's likely to start to emerge here over the course of the next 2 years as well. A lot of the foundation's now built, and I think the industry is ready to start capitalizing on the efficiency gains that can be associated with enterprise blockchain. So it's an exciting time, especially as you start looking at other emerging technologies like artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
IoT, and so on.
When you said payments, do you mean like claims payments or payments of your policy premium or something else entirely?
It could be all the above. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things that we're talking to a variety of different payment vendors about potential solutions that could be, in a sense, integrated to what we're doing. Like we were talking about earlier, the net settlement type solutions are,
Yes.
of course, interesting. But even like when you start thinking about the potential for payment solutions that are more international,
Yeah.
and you start to merge this concept of enterprise blockchain with kind of more the public blockchain space, it starts to be pretty interesting that you could potentially do cross-border payments from fiat USD to
Yep.
another currency using public blockchain rails and really not know that you're using cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
That's something that's just emerging now, and we're in some discussions about the potential use cases associated with that as well. So a lot of interesting new technologies emerging and a lot of excitement in the insurance industry for what it can do.
Well, it's great. I think there's a ton of possibility. I will admit, the further this goes, the less I understand. I'm still trying to figure out what NFTs really are, but that's beside the point. The enablement, the things that they make better, that frankly we've struggled with, poured billions of dollars into for decades and never really moved the needle on. That's where I get excited. So I don't need to understand exactly what an NFT is or how it could be used, but I do know the possibilities are pretty profound, and it would be great to see us make progress on these fronts. So I'm excited for what you all are building. Patrick, thank you so much for spending some time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It was so great to sit down with Patrick. And I will admit, like I said at the end, there's so much about this that is, goes right over my head. But that's kind of, I think the point in what he was saying is it's not about the specific technology. If you noticed, I probably said blockchain and DLT more than he did. It's actually about this idea of having a way to solve for these multi-party situations we find ourselves in that are riddled with friction, that are not moving us forward, or that are creating more pain, more cost, more customer experience problems, more employee experience problems, and hitting our bottom line. And there could be lots of different technologies that solve for that. But it's about creating this group independent of any one individual to bring everyone together to find paths to simplify, to share, to do better. And blockchain happens to be one of the technologies that's well suited to that. In some cases, there will be others, but that's something Patrick and I talking offline that he was making clear to me is it's not a blockchain solution. It's a multi-party solution for bringing the industry together, lots of different nodes and types of players to move us forward more efficiently, more smoothly, with less friction, for better results for everybody, which is, I think, the right spirit. Absolutely. And I appreciate that openness that, like, look, it's not a single thing at a single point in time, because nothing is. And I do think, as much as it's been almost a decade of hype and uncertainty around it, and that can lead people to sort of move on to something else and maybe write it off, I think he's right. We are at that point of inflection where we're coming out of that trough of disillusionment. And now it's about real possibility. And there's some very tangible things that they're doing right now. As this comes out, pilots are about to launch. There are other things going on that will start to bring material benefit and examples we can point to, which is fantastic. So if you're not paying attention, you should. And if you don't understand the tech, you certainly understand the idea of these multi-party interactions that we have constantly in the industry, that we could have easier, better, less friction, and just get the information we need, have the transactions process that we need to process without having so much back and forth and pain, or have these canceling transactions that if we had just talked to each other, we could have avoided the whole thing. It's brilliant. So thank you to Patrick and to the Institutes and the RiskStream Collaborative for doing the work that they're doing. It is important, and we do need a party outside of any particular single carrier or group of carriers to do this on their own, or others, brokers, agents, what have you. I hope that's informative for everyone. I hope it has you scratching your head and wondering, what could we do better? How do we get on board with that? So great conversation. I thought really interesting stuff. Tune in next time. We'll have more inspiration and hopefully thought-provoking moments for you to wonder, well, what could I do differently in my situation to move the industry forward? Be sure to follow the show. Just go to future-of-insurance.com, click on podcast, get all the episodes, or whatever platform you're watching or listening this in. You can subscribe there. Make sure you stay up to date. And we'll see you back here next time. Thanks, everyone.